Hello everyone, my name is Professor Kenneth Scholler, and I'm the professor for this critical thinking course that we'll be taking over the next 15 weeks. I earned my doctoral degree at the Graduate Center of the City University of New York and wrote a dissertation in ethics, but we're always using arguments, and so that's what makes this course relevant. You're making arguments back and forth, and we're going to talk about some of the nuts and bolts of those arguments today. That's the first thing, it's the first reading you'll do, and I wanted to kind of prep you for that. Today I want to go over just some of the nuts and bolts of the course, of the first week's reading actually, to prepare you for that reading and to post answers to questions on there. So logic is the study of arguments, but what is an argument? This is what this concerns, this first set of readings that you're assigned to do. Well, first of all, arguments have to do with statements, not explanations, not questions, not commands, but statements. Statements are sentences that either are true or false. And so I can say, even if I make a false statement that the stock market crash occurred in October 1931, it's still a statement. It can be assessed as true or false. If I say the stock market crash occurred in October of 1929, I've uttered a true statement. It's a statement that can be assessed as being true. So statements, which the author talks about, the first section of the book, are then either make up the premises or conclusions of our arguments, because an argument, in fact logic itself could be called the study of arguments, but arguments themselves can be broken down into premises plus conclusions. Premises, as you probably are aware if you've done the reading, premises are supporting statements. Conclusions are the statements that follow from those supports. So I might hold the view that euthanasia should be legal. Euthanasia is otherwise known as physician-assisted death, is legal in 10 jurisdictions in the United States. Washington, D.C. is one of the 10. It's not a state, so we say jurisdictions, 9 other states. I think that should be legal, and I would support that with statements. It's the choice of the patient would be one of those statements. The patient should have the liberty to either carry on with their life or end their life if they're terminally ill. So when I have premises, supporting statements, and conclusions that follow from that, then I have an argument. So we're going to be looking, one of the exercises early on in there is to separate premises from conclusions. Again, if I say it ought to be legal, euthanasia or physician-assisted death ought to be legal, that's what I'm trying to sell you. That's the conclusion. It's obviously the thing I'm trying to convince you of. It could appear first in my paragraph, or it could, you'll notice, appear at the end of a paragraph. In any case, I'm going to support that with statements or relevant evidence. If I have premises that support conclusions, I have a good argument. If I have premises that are irrelevant to conclusions, we have right now many people believe that taking hydrochloroquine will cure COVID-19. There's no evidence for that, and so any statements made about hydrochloroquine and its effect on curing this virus seem to be outside the realm of science as we know it right now. So those would be irrelevant to that conclusion. But arguments are one of the favorite things that for me in philosophy. We're always looking at arguments, good or bad. If you look at an advertisement, it's making an argument that you need this product. An advertisement for Alexa saying this is a high-performance car. You should buy this car seems to be the conclusion of that particular advertisement. Why? Because it's a high-performance car, and there's ads seem to do that, whether they're clothing ads or perfume ads or whatever the case may be. The person is trying to pitch you, the conclusion is to buy this particular article. I think they happen a lot all the time, arguments. They're ubiquitous in the culture. They happen in sports as well, notice. There was recently a documentary on Michael Jordan, Last Dance. Many of you might have seen a part of it, or I saw all 10 parts of it, so 10 hours of it. And people walked away with the conclusion that they might have already had, that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. Well, if I make that assertion, Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time, I have to support that. How would I support that? What would be considered relevant evidence for that conclusion? I might bring up his points per game average, which is the highest of all time, slightly higher than Wilt Chamberlain, who's in second place. I might bring up all his defensive awards. He's won Defensive Player of the Year many times, how many finals he appeared in, and he appeared in 6 finals in the NBA, and I think the Chicago Bulls won all 6, and Michael Jordan was the MVP of all 6 finals. Now I'm starting to amass evidence furthering my conclusion. If I say something like, well, Michael Jordan was 6'6", is that relevant to the conclusion that he's the best? He's not the shortest, he's not the tallest. It's not apparent how that would be relevant. But there's been a debate for a long time. That goes on in baseball, it goes on in soccer, it goes on in hockey, although to a lesser extent because it's obvious that Gretzky's the greatest player in hockey. But these debates go on because they're fun, for one thing, and they're good practice for arguments. You start to amass evidence of one kind or another. And so you can have a counter argument saying that you bring up evidence for some other player. But the players who you typically see getting compared to Jordan are Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, more often than not LeBron James. And so we can make arguments for and against there. So the first part, you'll notice you're reading, are about statements, premises, conclusions, and arguments. And the exercises ask you to separate those. One more thing that appears there is the difference between an inductive and a deductive argument. An inductive argument is an argument whose conclusion follows with probability. I might say we've had 8 days in a row of weather over 85 degrees, therefore tomorrow we'll have another day. Is that certainly true or only probably true? It's only probably true. Meteorology is not an exact science, so that's an inductive argument. A deductive argument would be something of the kind, all persons are mortal, Jill is a person, so Jill is mortal. The premise, all persons are mortal, includes Jill. She's a person, and so is Jill mortal? Yes, deductively true. It's a certain conclusion. The conclusion, we say, follows necessarily from the premises. So it's interesting to see which arguments, which things in life really are probable, and which things are certain. So that's really the nuts and bolts for this first week. When you do those readings, I hope that this little prompt here with this video will help you, and then I'll see you again next week. But welcome to the class. I hope we have a good 15 weeks. All right, see you next week.